Good afternoon or good morning, fellow ruminators. Welcome back to another session, Rumination with Andrew. And this morning we have a breaking story. And the title of my video for this morning is that the JLP seems to be ahead in the recent poll conducted or commissioned by Don Anderson. The new Don Anderson poll shows that the JLP has a much more favorable impression, much more favorable impression on Jamaicans. So in Jamaica, Don Anderson poll has suggested that the PNP is not in a favorable position as the JLP at the current moment. And that is something very interesting because, I have been asking, where are the polls? And today, this morning, we woke up and we are hearing, well, I saw it on the news that was posted on YouTube. Now, let us look at a new poll suggests Andrew Holness is more favorable to win a third term than Mark Golding. But does Mark Golding's manifesto change the game? In this video, we break down Golding's promises, whether Jamaicans see him as a real alternative to Holness and the JLP. Well, I did do a breakdown of Golding's manifesto in a video that I have not published. I was going to publish it before I publish this video. However, I think that in light of the freshness of this news story, that it's important that this be given to you at the moment. So I'm not going to delay. I'm going to have you listen at the moment to the newscaster who presented this very important news in terms of, it seems to me that the JLP is on a path, according to the polls, according to the recent Don Anderson poll, not my poll. I'm not a pollster. So don't come now blaming me and telling me that I am pro-JLP, because I'm not, neither JLP nor PNP. Okay, so good. Please listen.
From both party leaders and political parties. This follows the findings of the latest.
Sorry, I think I have to.
From August 2 to 11, 1,000.
I want to start it over again.
Voters were surveyed in all parishes across Jamaica. Good rating or bad rating? With the stage set for the September 3 general election, Jamaicans are stating their opinions of both party leaders and political parties. This follows the findings of the latest RGR Cleaner Don Anderson polls done from August 2 to 11. 1,008 registered voters were surveyed in all parishes across Jamaica. The data show that 41% of respondents have a good opinion of Prime Minister Dr. Andrew Holness. It's a 3 percentage point increase over the May-June 2025 poll. The August 2025 data state that 37% of respondents have a poor opinion of the Prime Minister, while 22% have no opinion. For the opposition leader, 39% of respondents have a good opinion of Mark Golding. It's a 9 percentage point increase over the May-June 2025 poll. The August 2025 data also indicated that 27% of respondents have a poor opinion of the opposition leader, while 34% have no opinion. Looking at the favorability rating of both leaders, it shows a roughly 3 percentage point gap. The margin of error for the poll is plus or minus 3%. For the unfavorability ratings, more people had a poor opinion of the Prime Minister. There's a gap of 10%. Meanwhile, 41% of respondents have a favorable opinion of the JLP. 40% have an unfavorable opinion, while 19% had no opinion. Similarly, 35% of respondents have a favorable opinion of the PNP, 31% unfavorable, and 34% had no opinion. When comparing the favorability data, it shows a 6 percentage point gap, meaning the JLP has a higher favorability rating. However, more people also have a bad opinion of the JLP. There's a 9 percentage point gap between both parties. So what are the top 6 reasons for having a good opinion of the JLP according to respondents? better plans and ideas. There's trust in their leadership, care for the poor and working class. The JLP has done well in the past, traditional party supporter, and they represent change. Reasons for the bad opinions of the JLP: people don't trust their leadership. They haven't proven themselves. The party only cares about some people. There's a poor track record when the JLP is in power. People never supported the party, and there's too much division and confusion. So, what are the top 6 reasons for having a good opinion of the PNP according to respondents? They care about the poor and working class. They have better plans and ideas. They have done well in the past. There's trust in their leadership. People traditionally support the party, and the PNP represents great change. Reasons for the bad opinions of the PNP: they haven't proven themselves. Their leadership isn't trusted. A poor track record. Respondents have never supported the party. Too much division and confusion in the PNP, and they only care about.
Okay, so that is the news, and that is what was reported last night on TVJ, on Television Jamaica. Now we can see that the Prime Minister has favorable rating over Mark Golding. Now that is not surprising, but we also must understand also that given the fact that he is leading in the favorability rating, that's the Prime Minister, Dr. Andrew Holness, it does not mean, therefore, that he is on a smooth slide to winning the election this coming September 3rd. In fact, what we're seeing in Jamaica is that what the favorability ratings, I should say, is done mostly, or the participants are mostly, it seems to me, diehards. They are not, they don't represent a large segment of our society. In fact, it seems like many of our people, as we have been suggesting, is suffering from voter apathy, in which many of them, they either have no opinion or they do not see them in a favorable light. So this is no, win gain for Andrew Holness. This is no gain for him to suggest that, even if he wins the election, either of them, whether it's Mark Golding who wins or Andrew Holness, Jamaicans still are skeptical and do not trust their politicians. A lot of the times when we see these polls, they have to do with diehards. Very important that we understand that. Now, Don Anderson did say also in an article he wrote for The Gleaner last year that polls are not about sides, which means that it's not about objectivity, it's about marketing. So that is what Don Anderson is. Remember now that he is a marketing specialist turned pollster. So the fact of the matter is that we don't expect anything coming out of these polls to be definitive or unequivocal. All right, we must understand that. We can't think that because the polls say X, it means therefore that it is going to be, right? It is law, right? Because it might not be so, right? The Mark Golding could wound up winning the election now, or could wind up, I should say, winning the election. So we have to be very careful of what we see. But based on what we're seeing now, and the fact that Mark Golding is not the most formidable leader that the PNP could have selected. Now, I find it very interesting also that whilst Mark Golding is a weak leader, that you have persons the likes of KD Knight, who is creating a drama now because of what Dr. Tufton and these people released, suggesting that he was not particularly in favor of Mark Golding. Now, the fact is that KD Knight is trying to sue Christopher Tufton, and that is also a lot of drama in the media, detracts from the leader. If KD Knight wants the PNP government to win, it doesn't seem like he wants them to win, he would not be creating that stink now in the media in terms of what the JLP, because they seem to have released some secret conversation in which KD Knight says that Mark Golding is not the best leader for the PNP. And because it was used on the JLP's political platform, KD Knight is now suggesting that in light of secrecy and, and not wiretapping people and, taping them without their permission or releasing their pronouncements in public, he's going to sue the JLP. But that is detracting from the message that the PNP would like to diffuse at the current moment. So you really wonder if, people in high circles, even within the PNP, right, even within the party, is or are working to unseat, not to unseat, but not to have Marky G win the next government election. But so far, it seems like Dr. Andrew Holness is on a path for a third term in office. He's not going to get a big win, as or many people are suggesting, unless the what we call these people now, the swing voters, the undecided, unless they decide that they're going to go out in large numbers. How would the JLP be able now to have most Jamaicans go out to vote, turn out to vote in the next general election? I'm not sure. Already also we're seeing where young people are isolated. And there was a young man, I'm sorry I did not really upload that video, who was suggesting, he was, dialoguing with Devil Bell on TVJ, and he was saying that young people are not a part of the process, that they're isolated from the political process, because he cited a very good example in which many young people will be going off to college, to different schools in Kingston, leaving, or just around the island in particular. It doesn't have to be Kingston. It could be people leaving from St. Anne to go to Portland, from Portland to Manchester, wherever they are. They are traveling to different parts of the country, right? And let us say somebody leaves from Portland to Manchester, from Portland to Kingston to attend college or whatever school he or she's attending, that they're not going to return to school for September, some of them late August, and having to return back to their polling stations in whatever parish they've emerged from to vote for their MPs. They're just not going to do that. They're not going to do that. And there are concerns in terms of what is happening on the JLP side too. He's not having things there. It's not a smooth sail. It's not going to be a smooth sail, I should say. Did I say it's not going to be a smooth sail for Prime Minister Andrew Holness, in his bid for third term in office. And I think that Gordon Robinson contextualized it very well in his article that he wrote for the Civic Leader yesterday. And he says here, on April 13th, pick a winner with a please. I predicted a JLP win by 1 to 4 seats, depending on the outcome of specific variables. Firstly, I expected the election to be done and dusted before July. So, Gordon Robinson expected that this election would have already been over with, but it's not over with yet. So that's one variable out the window. The delay, apparently to ensure a popularity boost from independence celebrations, has, in my opinion, operated against JLP's interests and very much in favor of PNP. So the JLP, according to Gordon Robinson, seemed to have been riding or wanted to have ridden on the wings of the independence celebration, but it doesn't seem like it's working in their favor, according to what this veteran, political commentator is suggesting. Frankly, and he continues, that's Gordon Robinson, very distinguished journalist and lawyer in Jamaica. Frankly, I'm flummoxed as to what PM was thinking, and I question either the savvy or cajones of his advisors, excluding Desmond and Darrell, who would have an abundance of both, who ought to have cautioned him if he was distracted. Anyway, it is what it is. And he decided that he was going to call the election September 3rd when he could have called it before. On April 13th, I concluded I'm expecting Floyd to leverage his agricultural ministry's achievements, bring home the bell weather, and confirm JLP's at worst 32 to 31 win, 33 to 30 if Portmore is a parish, 34 to 29 if Chuck Samuda's successor both win. My moles tell me the delay has gone against JLP in both constituency variables. Government having failed to gerrymander an entire parish to win one seat, Raymond Price should end Terry Long's political adventure in St. Catherine East Central. That's very interesting, and I perhaps should do a video on that with the race between Raymond Price and Terry Long. Now, Raymond should have done so in 2020, but we all know what Rise United did to PNP 6 years ago when COVID came along to give one PNPers an excuse to stay home. Since then, PNP support has coalesced behind Raymond, so that's one more in PNP's win column. So he's suggesting that Terry Long does not have a safe seat, and there are quite a bit of, stink also and controversies about other seats, including I was reading in the Gleaner this morning in Manchester Central, where you have the likes of, is it Robert Chin, who the constituents are suggesting he was not there and they had to replace him with somebody else. The same thing happened with in Richard Azon's constituency. I mean, the GLP is having lots of problems, that we are not told about. Oftentimes we're looking at the leader himself, the political leader and Prime Minister Andrew Holness, but we're not looking at the PMs, the members of parliament, not the PMs, but the members, the MPs, not the PMs, but the MPs, right? We're not looking at the MPs, the members of parliament, whom we should be looking at because they are the ones who are, elected. The PNP is not elected. The PM, the Prime Minister, I need to get my head together. The Prime Minister is not elected by the citizens, right? The MPs are, including the Prime Minister who's an MP. But, fortunately for him, he has a safe seat. Okay? So the fact of the matter is that the GLP is under scrutiny, is under great pressure, and even though they're giving us this impression that they have it in the bag, that the win in the bag, it is not so. A number of the constituencies around the country are having problems with their MPs, their GLP MPs, because many of them are saying, as we all know, and this has been factual, this has been the reality ever since we became independent as a nation rather, that the MPs, they only show up when it's election time. Okay, when it's not election time, they're not going to show up and the constituency is going to decay, which many are decaying. And that's why we're seeing Jamaica, the people are suggesting that there is a disconnect between what the government is saying, the Prime Minister is saying about the economy and what ordinary men and women are seeing and are living and are experiencing. Okay, that is what we need to understand. But for whatever it is, I know it's drama. Many of you have not yet learned that message. You think the election is real. You think that you are electing your officials, but they have already been selected, and you will elect the ones that have been already selected. And, and life will continue, right? As Mark Wilgnell said in his article, the election will come and go, and you'll get a day older. Right? You'll all get a day older and nothing fundamentally would have changed. That is what we need to understand. But I don't think, for the likes of me, that we have begun to understand it. You're getting all excited about something that is really, really not important. What should be important to all of us is that the MPs, the members that these constituents have selected or elected, that they are doing what they should be doing. And in fact, before any elections are called, there should be an assessment of all MPs long before it's called. That's why we need to have fixed election dates. So let us say a year before the election is called, there needs to be at least 2 evaluations done about these MPs and whether or not, in fact, all MPs should also have manifestos, not only the Prime Minister. We need to have also the MPs, the members of Parliament, crafting and implementing their plans, their manifesto plans. That is very important because we talk about the government, the Prime Minister, but he is just, governing the macro, that he's not seeing the micro, and the micro is more important than the macro. Right? In fact, the micro informs what is really happening in the macro. But the thing about it is that they control the narrative, so they can tell that the macro is more important than the micro. But the micro economy is the more important. It is not the least or the less important of the two. Okay, very important that we understand that we're placing lots of emphasis that on which emphasis or a significant amount of emphasis should not be placed on. Very important that we understand these points that I'm raising. So the PNP seems now to be skirting around, and based on what I'm hearing, what is happening in Manchester, for example, Peter Bunting is up to probably going to Manchester Central, it seems, because the GLP's he's not particularly, his presence is not felt, and he's not doing what he's supposed to do. So it's a possibility that the PNP could win also Manchester Central. There was a lady who said that, yes, or man, I can't remember, that she would vote for Peter Bunting just as a message. She's GLP, but she said she would vote for Peter Bunting just to send a message to the GLP that they did not do what they were supposed to have done. So it's a possibility that the GLP could lose the election, particularly in light of what, what's his name, Robinson saying, Gordon Robinson, because of the delay. Look at what he continues to say before we wrap up. So we have the delay also has helped Stacey Knight's campaign to unseat a tired-looking Delroy Chuck in St. Andrew Northeastern. She's an excellent candidate with unlimited potential in national politics, while Delroy seems to have been taking constituents for granted for a while. And that is what they do. When you give them a long time, they are going to take you for granted. That is what we have to understand. So whether we want Golding in or Andrew Holness, it's best to have a new face right now, because at the end of the day, they always take us for granted when you give them these length of time in office. His long stint as MP has been assisted by weak, uncoordinated PNP competition. My upset special in this election is Stacey Knight to retire Delroy Chuck. So Stacey Knight might get that seat. Okay, so Delroy Chuck might lose that seat. So after considering all constituency variables, JLP is down to winning by the flare of a nostril, 32 to 31, and he says he stick by that prediction. When you consider some of the bad news that has befallen JLP during the last 6 weeks, including legal setbacks, constitutional reform stalling, candidate selection strife, which we're having and continues to have, especially in Carl Samuda's swing seat. And he says, yes, I said Carl Samuda is also, he has a swing seat, which means he can go to the PNP as well as the JLP. Public service unrest and steady increase in real cost of living, not in the IMF cost of living, but in real cost of living, in real inflation, not the book inflation, but in real inflation. This election can clearly go either way. And when I saw the manifesto, the release of the PNP's manifesto at the Jamaica Pegasus Hotel that was done last Monday night, to be specific, I think that the PNP stands a good chance of winning, despite what the polls are saying. I think that Andrew Holness, is a little bit too arrogant at this point, and they need, I saw the likes of the foreign minister, that is Kamina Johnson, Smith is something of the sort. Yeah, that she is, pronouncing all the grandiose work that Andrew Holness has done. And they amounted to just more his global presence, that, which PNP leader has ever been invited to the G7 or the G20, and, which PNP leader has ever been asked to perform and to undertake global ventures. And I'm saying these global ventures are not necessarily in the interest, are not in the interest, I should say. I'm saying definitively are not in the interest of Jamaican citizens. All of what he's talking about, the UN and the G7 and the G20, they don't care about the average citizen. So whether or not he attends these meetings have nothing to do with anything as far as nation building is concerned. All they do is build his resume and his image, but he's not building that of Jamaica, well, for the elites, but not for the common man. So this is my analysis. I hope that you've learned something from it. What do you think? Do you trust the polls? Do you think that Don Anderson poll is an objective poll? Do you think that it's scientifically based? Or do you think that the Don Anderson poll, as he suggested, is just mere marketing? I leave you the viewers to determine that. Thank you so much for joining. I hope that you'd like, share, and subscribe, that the video so the video can be shared with as many people on the platform. And for those of you who'd like to send your monetary contributions, you can send them to my PayPal account. And my PayPal account is Andy_Tucker_450@hotmail.com. I repeat, my PayPal address is Andy, ANDE_Tucker_450@hotmail.com. See you in another video. Ciao. Tomorrow I will release for you my critique of the manifesto of Mark Golding. It was supposed to have been released this morning, but I thought I would share this news with you since it is fresh and just off the table. See you then. Ciao.